I'm Jason with Sit and Sit Dog Training. Obviously, if you're watching this video, then you're getting a little bit more of an introduction about what we do, how we do it, and kind of get a better understanding. So what I'm going to go through with you right now is the literal thought process that we're going to teach, and really kind of get you to dive into what we're teaching, why we're teaching it, and really, as you can see, I mean, there is no script here. This is just me talking to you, just being honest and being a person with you. So what I'm going to kind of do is just walk you through how I think. Go through some of the core principles so that you understand really what this whole canine lifestyle training thing is about, and that way you know what you're getting involved with. So first and foremost, you notice I'm talking exactly about thought processes. I'm not talking about, well, here's how you sit a dog and here's how you down a dog and all this other nonsense, because the truth of the matter is, more times than not, when people come to me, they already know how to sit their dog, they already know how to down their dog, and whether they know it by common sense or watching a YouTube video, whether they know it by going through another separate trainer, doing puppy training or treat training or all that kind of stuff, most people know how to do that stuff. And obviously if you're inquiring about dog training, it's usually one of two reasons. One, you have this nagging problem that you just can't fix, i.e. the dog's jumping on people at the door or is becoming aggressive or fearful, or you have a puppy and you want to start off on the right foot. So with most of these two things, it's not so much just about teaching a single behavior, it's more about teaching a lifestyle, and that's exactly why I don't get into exact processes, because there's a lot of ways to do everything. One of the biggest things that we do as an organization is that we are heavily involved with making sure to work with you and your dog, and we do it right on the spot, custom tailoring, ideas and tricks of the trade that we've learned right on the spot and in the moment. So what I will encourage you to do, if you don't have a pen and paper, go grab one. Otherwise, obviously, this is probably coming with a stack of papers of some sort. Go ahead and flip them around and start writing some of this stuff down, because this transcends just any other dog training method. This is much more about, hey, how are we going to learn how to have the correct thought process? Because the other big part about dog training that most people don't teach is how to be a mobile thinker. You have to be able to do this stuff on the fly. See, most of the problems don't happen when you're sitting right in the middle of a training class, unless of course you have those problems, right? The dog aggression, the people aggression, or just the overall high energy craziness, right? So for the most part, when people are in that training environment, see, the dog's okay. It's what happens when the circumstance shifts, right? So here's a couple things, and you should have that pen and paper ready by now. Here's a couple things that I want you to take down. Number one, we deal with a core principle, a core motto, if you will, and it governs really where does our thought process start? How do we get to problem solving with our dogs? So our motto is very simple, and it goes a little something like this. Number one, if it's not a problem, then it's not a problem. If it's a problem, then we're going to fix it. Notice this leaves no room for gray area, right? This is a very, very exact process. And why is this motto so important? Why do we use it? Because it seems rather simple, doesn't it? It seems like, oh, yeah, I got it. Okay, yeah, of course, not a problem, not a problem. But the first thing people ask me, is this okay? Is this not okay? Or it is a problem, they don't do anything about it, right? And it even comes down to simple things. Like, here's a good example. I've seen it on the internet, I've seen it on many different various sources and training books and stuff like that. And they say if you allow a dog to come up onto the couch or onto your bed or things of that sort, it makes them dominant. It's about the biggest bunch of horse hockey there is. Let me explain though why. Because are there situations where dogs go on couches to become aggressive and become dominant? Well, of course there is. But is it the couch's fault? Well, no. And I think that's probably the biggest thing to understand, is that it's not about an inanimate object, right? It's about your interactions. How are you handling that situation? The other big rule that I take away is if something is a definite, for instance, in that case, if you let the dog on the couch, they're going to become dominant. Or you let them on the bed, they're going to become dominant. To use an absolute like that, it needs to work like any other absolute or law or theory that we have in place that we accept as fact. For instance, gravity is something we accept as fact. If I hold out a pencil and I drop it, it will fall 100 times out of 100 times. Therefore, you'll notice there's plenty of people who let their dogs on couches and let them sleep with them in the bed and all this other stuff, and the dog is normal and fine, and there's no dominance issues, there's no aggression issues, right? So what's the real issue? Well, in that case, the real issue is just about the interaction and respect levels and the leadership, within the family. The couch just happens to be, or the bed happens to be one spot where the problem's happening, but you talk to most of these people, you'll see the bubble of the dog will get much, much bigger. Okay? The other reason I like this motto is that too much of dog training gets in the way of lifestyles. So what happens is that as we start living our lifestyles, we think too much about rules and we have to change the lifestyle, and that usually doesn't lead to progress. For instance, with gym memberships, if going out to a gym is not a natural part of your life, a commitment that you're ready and willing to make, will you go to the gym? Well, start off with, of course you will, right? You just made a huge investment, you're moving forward, you're getting excited for the first week or two, you're feeling good, but then why don't people keep it up? Well, because it's exciting at first, you have that drive at first, but at the end of the day, since it wasn't formatted to you, your lifestyle, and things that you normally are about, it doesn't work, it doesn't integrate. So this integrates with your lifestyle much more powerfully, and it's probably in a way that you already use. Here's a good example. When I was a small child, of course I'm allowed to sit on couches, right? I could go on any couch I wanted, go on the chairs that I wanted, everything was good, great, fine, and dandy. However, when Grandpa and Grandmas came over, or aunties and uncles, or whatever the case may be, guess where I sat? Well, I went down to the floor, I had to go to a different chair or a cooler. Grandpa and Grandmas, aunties, uncles always got that ability, that privilege to sit on the couch. So normally, is it a problem for me to sit on the couch? No. But was it a problem once these people came over? Well, yes, it was a problem, and it needed to be addressed. Now, just because it was a problem and needed to be addressed, was it a bad thing? Was it something I was afraid of? Was it terrible? No, it was just simply a fact. Hey, we need to do something about this problem. And that's going to be the big change that you're going to make with your dog. See, is it okay to let your dogs on the couch? Well, that's up to you. All right, I'll tell you, me personally, I don't. But here's why. I have shepherds. I have cloth couches. I'm extremely lazy, and I don't feel like vacuuming my couches all the time, trying to keep up with all the hair and the fur and all this other nonsense. So for me, for my lifestyle, it's a problem because my problem stems from the fact that I don't have time, and I mostly don't have the effort to want to go over there and clean all the time to keep these couches clean. Okay? But can I let the dogs in the bed? Well, sure, for me, because guess what? I'll pull the covers off, I'll pull the sheets off, and I can wash them, right? Not a problem. So there's where you can differentiate. But let me ask you, let's say that I have my son in my bed. And I have, by the way, I have 4 dogs, okay? And all of them are pretty big. Link is my puppy, he's only 6 months right now. Obviously, depending on when you watch this video, he might get older, he might get bigger, but at a bare minimum, he's going to be about 50 to 60 pounds. Now, my female Mel is 60 pounds, my boxer's 60 pounds, and my Rhodesian Ridgeback's 130 pounds. That's a lot of dogs, and a lot of big dogs, okay? So if I have my small little son in bed, right, there's no room for all these dogs, number one. Number two, obviously, as they get excited, especially Link being the young puppy that he is, he might spin around and do all that stuff. It's just going to cause a problem for me. So in order to go to that problem and just fix it before it even happens, I'm going to stop it and just simply say, hey, you can't be on the bed right now. I'm clarifying the rules for the dog per the situation. A lot of people have this disbelief, or this belief, that you have to have concrete. It can never change. If I allow a dog on the couch, I can never expect them to stay off if I tell them off. And it's just nonsense, right? Think about this with children, for instance. If you have a small child that comes to spend the night in bed just because they're sick or whatever the case may be, does that mean that mom or dad would go, oh no, I've lost my place in bed, they're going to be sleeping in bed with us till they're 25? No. The next night, if the child wants to sleep there and you say, hey, it's not going to happen, what's going to happen? Well, depending on your parenting style, whether you follow through or don't follow through, my guess, it's probably not going to happen, right? Because you can't do that forever. Now, there's different variations, different methods, but what's the real point here? You're going to find a way to make it clear to the child what your expectation is, and you're going to help them meet that expectation. Key words here, help them meet that expectation. Okay? You're not going to sit there and smack them in the back of the head until they do it, right? And for the few that are going to go, yeah, I would do it. Okay, yeah, everybody's got that jokes. But I mean, realistically, most people are not going to do that. In the same light, though, most parents are not going to carry around these ice cream cones and start waving in front of their face going, oh, I hope to God that they get out of the bed. No, they're simply going to help the child meet that expectation, right? It's neither good nor bad. Once again, I do digress a little bit, so just so you know, that's going to happen through the course of this video. So what's the real point here is that motto really works for your lifestyle. And it works for your lifestyle because it's constantly adapting. adapting, excuse me. As the rules change, this model flows and changes with it so that you always have the power in the situation. So the biggest thing I ask most people is, as they go on to learn things, what's the one thing that they really need to learn and really need to understand? They need to understand how to figure out what they want, right? That's probably the hardest thing to teach anybody. As I tell most people, 20% of any training that you do, regardless of what it is, business training, whether you're getting into physical fitness training, whether you're doing dog training, it doesn't matter. 20%, roughly, maybe 30, is going to be actually learning the skill of the trade. The 70 to 80% is all going to be about the psychology behind it. Getting up off your butt, having clear expectations, knowing what you want out of those situations so that you move forward and you do what it is you're looking to do. You accomplish goals. Now, when you take that model, right, and you apply it to your lifestyle, you're going to find that some things are a problem. Well, what happens if things are a problem? Okay? Very simple formula, and this is the formula that we're going to teach time and time again. If you work with us, you're going to hear us say this a million times. The formula is 3 steps. It's very simple. Okay? What are those 3 steps? Step number 1, get the dog's attention. Now, this may seem obvious, but to most people, if you really look at situations and how they work with their dogs, you'll notice that they completely blow past this step. See, they're trying to get the dog's attention and really get their focus, and especially in these midst of these distractions, but they just can't, right? So they blow way past step 1, and they go right to step 2, and we'll get to it in a minute, but step 2 is setting the expectation, okay? Go back to step 1 though, sorry about that. We're gonna backtrack to cover this real good, because this is very important. This is really the foundation of our system. We strive to always have the dog's attention and focus at any moment, for any reason, regardless of what's going on. If you have their attention and focus, you have the ability to communicate with your dog regardless of the situation. Well, how do you do that? Well, there's lots of ways to do that, but as a primary, once again, as a thought concept, there's a lot of tricks to this, but as a thought concept, what are we really going to do? We are going to teach the dogs that we are more high value in every situation than anything that could ever come across. See, chasing the bunny is fun, but dad's the best, mom's the best, right? What mom and dad have to say is really important, and it always incorporates something that is of value to them. See, a lot of people also get twisted about reward, and we're going to hit that in just a minute, but I'm going to make sure and stay targeted here. Sometimes I can kind of dive off on tangents. So you really need to understand that in order to do anything with your dog, you need to get their attention. Now, how can you get their attention? Well, there's lots of ways, and there's lots of different methods. For instance, in the earlier methods that I did dog psychology, right? What do you see Caesar do a lot? Well, he uses that physical touch to interrupt behavior, and what's that for? Well, it's about neurologically snapping him out of it and getting that focus, that energy, that attention to come back to the handler. That's why he uses a personal touch, because that way the dog is really knowing where is that energy supposed to focus to. It gives them a direct targeted place for their energy. Notice this, and you go try this, by the way, with some small children. Children are 2-3 years old. Go up and just tap them on the shoulder and see what happens. Most of them are going to turn around and respond to you, right? They're going to turn around there and see where that tap's coming from. They're going to look at you. Okay? Did anybody teach them that? No. It's something instinctual. It's something. It's the body's need to respond to, hey, what was this stimulus? They want to know. They want to understand. Dogs are no different. And I encourage you to try the same thing. Walk right up to your dog, go right to their left shoulder, go, hey, need your attention. Watch what they do. Now, in most normal situations, you're going to see that you're going to go real soft, hey, and they're going to be right with you. Right? You're in the house, there's not much distraction, they're not engaged. But the problems that you're probably having, or the challenges that you're looking to conquer, are simply because in that moment, you have no ability to get their attention. Because most people don't understand that you need to be able to adjust to the dog. See, we do this with children all the time. I shouldn't even say with children, in our normal everyday interactions. For instance, if you're married, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever the case may be, if you have a significant other of any sort, when you speak to them, there's going to be plenty of times that they don't listen. Now, I'll be first to say, when my wife speaks to me, I listen all the time. Healthiest thing to do. But let's go ahead and play a scenario that you'd happen not to hear what your husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend happen to say. Are you doing that to be a jerk? Are you going to be obstinate? Not usually. More times than not, you simply don't hear them because the stimulus is overpowering your brain. Right? So what do you really need to do? Well, in our case, typically we speak up just a little bit louder. Now here's another thing to think of, right? We don't go straight from nothing to screaming. We step it up just a little bit. we adjust very minorly. And the idea is we're trying to overpower that fixation, trying to overpower that distraction so that we can communicate a clear message. Now, here's the one thing that people forget. People typically communicate verbally through our voice, right? And the funny thing is, if you actually do some studies on this, 93% of what we say doesn't actually come out of our mouth. It has to do with body language and voice inflection and all this other stuff. But to the point, people misunderstand and think that everybody and everything communicates through voice, right? Through verbal commands, through verbal cues, spoken language. Now, what's a big miscommunication? Well, if somebody doesn't understand, we think they don't hear us, so we speak louder. I'm sure you've seen the videos, right, in funny movies. As soon as somebody doesn't understand something, all of a sudden now they want to start talking louder. And it's just like, no, I don't understand, not that I can't hear you. Well, you hear that things happen in dog training just the same. When people become frustrated with their dogs, or they're just not sure, they're trying to teach, the tension builds, and it comes out the voice. Okay? What's a better, more clear way to communicate? We have to understand the dog's natural tendency to use other things. And the two things dogs typically communicate with, body language, and obviously, eye contact, right? Or excuse me, touch, excuse me, wow. So they typically use touch and body language. Those are two primary things that dogs are going to communicate with. Why am I even bringing this up? If you do not have the dog's attention, you cannot speak to them in their primary language. So by using what they normally communicate with, you are going to speak to them at a volume and in a way that they can understand. Therefore, you can start to teach them your verbal cues as a second language. See, when we teach a second language, typically we always have something to associate to understand, to know, and to refer back to so that we can make the connection in our mind. Right? We have the word we're trying to learn and its English translation. Okay? Well, dogs need that same thing, but we jump straight to the second language and just start blasting them with it, but we don't make any associations to what we want and what's really expected. So in order to teach that, step number one, you have to be able to get their attention. You have to be able to get their attention. Now, some of the other ways I think is pretty common, right? Some people use leashes and collars, the halties, the gentle leaders. Some people use good treats, right? You can teach a concept of marker training, lure training. There's a million things out there, but what's the most important thing here to understand? Use the tools that work best for your dog to, number one, get their attention. So what's step two? We already mentioned before, do you remember? Set the expectation. Now this may seem a little bit broad, but if you understand what it is I'm saying, it makes it very, very clear to the dog what you expect. So when you set an expectation, you need to have a clear picture. You need to have a step-by-step process down to the last minute detail of what you want. You should be able to picture in your head everything that you're expecting out of this dog. You should be able to write a list of exactly what everything is and what you expect. Let me give you an example. When I down my dogs, personally, I usually do shows with my dogs, and we've been on America's Got Talent, and we've done, we're getting into ring sport and hunting and all this other stuff. With my dogs, I have a lot of precision work that I do. So when I tell my dogs down, I do it to the last detail. So their paws are going to be straight out in front of them, their shoulders up, head up, their back is going to be straight. They're going to have this sphinx-like posture with basically that attention and focus on me. Now, to some people who may be like, well, that's really strict. Well, just think about it for a minute. If my dog's really needing to relax, do you think I'm going to use it down? My dogs already know how to lay down and relax. So I have commands and stuff for that. But for an actual structured down command, I do all of those things. And I demand those things every time. Now, here's where it's very unfair to demand and then not demand. Or I just pretty much hinted at, right? Not being consistent with your demands. So when you set up a command, why do I want you to know every single detail of that expectation? Because you have to enforce it every time. You can't go half the time, hey, you need to have your hips up, you need to have your head up, and then the other half of the time they kind of slouch over and you're like, oh yeah, that's okay. Because now you've created confusion for the dog. And what will ultimately happen, whether you like this or not, regardless of how positive you think you are, at some point it's going to get frustrating because you're like, I taught you that, I know you know it. Well, what happened is you slacked off in your expectation. Now, on the other hand, don't get too worried, right? If you mess up an expectation, error is part of humans, right? We are going to make errors. We're going to make mistakes. Dogs are going to make mistakes. It's not a problem. It's about what are we going to do to fix it. And that's the big thing, is you always need to keep your mind moving forward on what are we going to do about it. What is the expectation I truly want? So before you go to really set an expectation, I want you to think about everything down to the last detail before you try to enforce it. Don't simply go see something on TV and be like, hey, that was cool. I want to try and enforce that right now. Well, no, you got to make sure and teach what those expectations are. You got to know how to, or what you want to enforce in each of those expectations. Step number 3. This is the most important and the hardest to understand. Reward accomplishment of the expectation. Notice I said reward. I did not say go get 40 pounds of treats. Does that mean using a treat is a bad thing? Absolutely not. Too many people, however, have perverted what food training is, what the treats are supposed to mean in the scenario, and how real reward-based training works. So let me take a little time to explain it to you. A reward is anything that motivates the dog to basically say, number 1, great job, I appreciate it. Number 2, you're giving them that paycheck to work for. And number 3, obviously, is just appreciation. Okay? So the reward is going to supply that motivation, but it doesn't necessarily have to be just food, just treats. The other key thing about reward is that it happens when the behavior or the expectation is met. Now, that doesn't mean you can't lure or you can't do anything like that, but most people don't understand that there's a difference between reward and luring, and that luring is to build a concept, right? To teach them to follow your hands or however you set your markers up. But the idea is that it has to be a reward, an accomplishment of a correct behavior. If all you do is only pull out the reward, right, and try to bait them into it every time, what's going to happen? What most people experience, which is dog will do it perfectly, but only when there's reward around. Not simply the fact to do it. They don't understand how it all works. They will do it for motivation, right, but they won't do it just for the sake of doing it because the reward hasn't been conditioned properly. Now, I am going to go back one step. I'm going to talk about the rewards a little bit because I hinted that it's not just food. Here's some concepts for you to think about. Reward is more than just food for a lot of reasons. With children, for instance, if I try to simply make my 2- and 3-year-old child just to go do push-ups or pull-ups or go run around or do exercises, most children would not be receptive to that. Some might, but if they're receptive to it, they're usually be receptive to it a very short time and then they're done. Now, if I take them to a playground, well, what are they going to do? We're going to do all that stuff. Why? Because their perception is different. It's something that they value. They like to do it. They have fun. This is the association that they have built with this period, this place, this arena for having all this fun, getting the energy out, going and conquering new things that they didn't think they could conquer before. So it's something that motivates the child. Well, keep that in mind for your dogs, because guess what? Sometimes your dogs, they want to go run around like idiots, right? They want to go smell on this, they want to go pee on that, they want to chew on a stick, they want to chase a squirrel. Keep that stuff in mind for rewards. Those are other things and other ways to reward them besides just the good boy, besides just, having a treat or a favorite toy. Those are really cool things that you can do and different ways to reward them so that they understand. So that is really the process. Step number 1, get the dog's attention. You can't do anything, you can't communicate anything without their attention. Step number 2, set the expectation. Make sure it is a clear, set expectation in your own mind that you could sit right now and picture it, or you could take a piece of paper and you could write every single thing down. Lastly, reward accomplishment and expectation. I work for a paycheck, you probably work for a paycheck, I think we all work for some type of paycheck, some type of reward. Why should a dog be any different? Right? They should be rewarded just the same. So that's mostly just getting into the techniques and the actual thought processes and concepts. And here's kind of how everything works. Your obedience system is going to be what we call step number 1. It's a management system. Okay? So this is basically, let me back up, this is basically how dog training works as a whole. Step number 1 is you install a management system. And what this management system does is basically allows you tools of communication. These tools of communication allow you to set up the scenario as you want it to, and that builds into step 2, which is called pattern building. So as part of this lifestyle training, what we do is we help to teach you how to build patterns to fit your lifestyle. See, there's a million different ways to handle any problem. And one of the things that I'm very much against is somebody saying, well, there's only one way to do every single thing. That doesn't even make sense. That is not today's world. Truth is, there's a million ways to do everything. right? And you can even, especially in dog training, look at how many methods are out there. Well, what does that tell you? Is every method wrong and there's only one right one out there? Well, no. Every method has some amount of validity to it. Obviously, otherwise it wouldn't be around, right? What we want to do is take the best things that we've always learned and apply it, okay? The best thing that I've learned from every other method is that the method works inside the confines in which it was developed. What does that teach me? That teaches me that I need to come up with patterns that fit your lifestyle. Hence, canine lifestyle training. We need to develop patterns that are a normal part of your life. Why? If I ask you to stop everything you're doing for 30 minutes, 3 to 4 times a day, for 3 months, that's not normal. That's not natural. That means, number one, you're not training in the scenarios that are actually a problem for you. But number two, you're not coming up with realistic solutions for those problems. Because what you're doing is you're simply going out and practicing a bunch of stuff. Now, don't misunderstand. I'm not saying you can't practice. I'm not saying practice is bad. But it's not going to accomplish the overall goal that you're looking to accomplish. You need to come up with a realistic scenario. For instance, if your dog's jumping at people at the door, you're not going to be ready and waiting with the leash and the food and all this other stuff, right? All your tools. You're not going to be ready with all that. More times than not, when your dog goes to jump on somebody, you're going to be sitting your butt down, maybe watching some TV. You might be cooking dinner for the kids. You're going to be doing things that involve your normal lifestyle. And if your pattern's set up to just be only ready and waiting and deal with that part of the equation, you're not going to know how to fix it. You have to know how to go, hey, we're sitting on the couch enjoying a movie. Hey, we're cooking dinner for the kids. Hey, we're doing this, and another thing. Where do we start? How do we problem solve that? And that's what a pattern's about. Let me give you a good example. So number one, I've installed a management system with all my dogs, obviously. And I have something I call a place command. The place command basically means get up on any surface I tell you and stay on that surface until I say otherwise. So this can be like picnic tables, benches, chairs, anything you can really imagine. What I have is I have these little, they're called place cots, so they're kind of like little dog beds. The top is like a little trampoline material. It's really cool. So I have these in my house. And when I hear the doorbell go off, I hear something happen, I tell all my dogs, place. And what they do is they go on their little dog beds and they hang out there, and this allows me to go answer the door, open it up, say hi, let everybody in the door, close the door, and kind of go about my daily thing. And then once I'm ready, I can release them. Now, there's a huge set of advantages to all of this. Number one, people, regardless of how nice they're trying to be, will usually come through your door, and what's the first thing you do when they see your dog? And you're like trying to tell them, hey, calm down, we're trying to teach you not to do that. We want to be really calm with people, but what they do, oh, it's okay, it's just me, right? And they inadvertently, and they're not trying to do it to be vindictive or mean, don't misunderstand me, but it happens, right? So you completely take the human element out of this, okay? Number two, what if you have that person that's afraid of dogs, doesn't like dogs, because this is becoming a more popular trend these days. As more people get dogs and they don't have training, they don't have control, you see a lot of dog attacks. Right? So more people are very cautious about all types of dogs. By doing this, I basically cut off the human element. I don't let anything happen out of my control. But I don't really have to be worried about it either. Now you may say, hey, you're a professional trainer, that's probably the only reason your dogs can do that. No, I have tons of clients that do this, and you can go ask any one of them, through any of our group classes, hey, can you put your dog in place and go walk away, and they'll demonstrate. Right? Because it's just about setting a clear expectation for the dog, helping them understand, practicing in the scenarios. And here's the crazy part. They did it, and some of them have as many as 6 kids in their house, and they train to do this. That's the beauty of establishing a pattern that works for your lifestyle. So we come up with custom-made patterns, and you can do the same. Because here's the thing, is we're not going to come up with every single pattern that you're ever going to use in your lifestyle. Here's the reason. It's just not possible. There's always going to be new things that happen. And that's the huge, huge reason I'm even giving the time to talk to you now about teaching you how to think on your feet, how to apply all this stuff. Because you have to be able to be in control of your own situation. Because the situation's going to change. Nothing's ever the same. New things can happen. That's the hard part about dealing with dogs and their behavior. Right? Anatomy always pretty much has these same guidelines, right? If it's this, if you have this symptom and this symptom, this symptom, it's because of this, you give them this medication, takes care of that. Behavior's not that simple. Behavior can happen just for here or there, just by random stimulus and random thought. Now when you combine that with, environments of the home, environments of the dog's natural genetic tendencies and personalities, you've got a multitude of things that can happen. And that's why it's so important, so vitally important, that you understand how to think on your feet so that you can take control of any situation. So if you understand me correctly, remember when I said the 20%, 30% is just a skill of actual dog training, 70-80% psychology? This training system, as it is focused about you. This is focused on you learning the thought processes, the concepts, how to deal with any situation. So one thing I can tell you right now is if you're looking for a dog trainer where you're just going to hand everything over and you're going to get what I call a turnkey, right? The dog comes back and you never have to worry about anything ever again. Well, number one, you're setting yourself up for a painful realization, because there is no such thing. It's never going to happen. Behavior always changes. But two, that's not what I do. And I don't do it for a lot of reasons. But the key, you won't be happy with it. In the long run, you will not be happy with it. Because you're not going to be taught how to do anything. You're not going to be a part of the system. And you're not going to really have that control, that certainty to think and know what to do in any given situation. And that's not what I'm looking for. So anyway, back to the topic at hand. Number two, pattern setting. I'm going to teach you how to set those patterns. Okay? And you can even kind of teach yourself how to do that. Now, step number three, this is the final step. This is called a conditioned response. So after you practice that pattern enough times, you're going to produce what's called that conditioned response. I.e., have you ever had somebody random come, wave at you, right? You have no idea who they are, and you wave back? And let's just go ahead and play this scenario out, because I'm sure somebody's sitting in the room going, no, I never do that. They wave at me, I never wave back. Okay, so let's say you don't wave back. Typically the response is that you kind of get this tightening in your stomach, right, if you don't wave back. Why? You have a conflict within you. See, you've been conditioned for so long, since you were knee-high to a grasshopper, right? Mom grabs your hand and says, say hi, say bye. And it was a cute little thing that you did. But you've been conditioned for so long to wave at people that if you don't do it, it feels weird, it feels abnormal, you have a conflict within you, okay? That's what you're looking to produce with your dog. So what do I mean by this? Well, the example I gave was somebody coming to my door. Does that mean that when the doorbell goes off, the dogs go there, and if they get off or make a mistake, that they're going to feel bad and guilty? And no, it's not what I'm getting at. What I'm getting at is it becomes so natural for them to follow through with commands that they are more likely than not going to do it every single time. Why? Because it's natural for them. Dogs are not big questioners in the sense that we are. We have philosophy. Dogs don't care about philosophy, right? They're more primitive in their thought in that they want to follow the pattern that they've been given. The path of least resistance in every pattern. They want to know and fit into a pack. They want to be part of a family. And they're going to be constantly relying upon you to give that direction, to do that pattern. So as long as you're in charge, their normal situation is to follow the pattern that you provided for them. And that's really what producing that conditioned response is. Now, does that conditioned response produce itself overnight? No. Not even close. Okay? Are you going to master all this stuff in just 1 week, 2 weeks? Not necessarily. Now here's what I will say. After doing this for a very long time, having lots of clients come through, I mean we're over 300 clients already. Having all that happen, I've seen every dog with every problem. Now, I've seen most dogs with just about every problem. I haven't seen a whole lot of new stuff. What I have seen though, clients getting their dogs off leash consistently, regular, within a month or two. If they apply the techniques the way they're taught. Can you do it? Absolutely you can do it. But it comes down to one thing. Do you want to follow these thought processes? Do you want to follow these concepts? Because they work. They work time and time again. Once again, there's 82 franchises, sit-mean-sit franchises, all over the nation right now. We are one of the top 10 sit-mean-sit franchises in the organization. We know that we can teach you to do it. The question is, do you believe you can do it? See, this goes back to that psychology thing that I can tell you before. I know I can get these dogs off leash. I've done it hundreds and hundreds and thousands of times, right? I know I can get you to do it. I just have to convince you to believe it. So by doing this, and the whole reason me giving this video is just kind of getting you into the mindset already of, hey, you can accomplish it. And it is that simple, right? What have I really told you? Our model, if it's not a problem, it's not a problem. Seems pretty simple, doesn't it? It's because it is, right? How do we fix things? Step one, we get their attention. Step two, we set that expectation. Step three, reward accomplishment of that expectation. Seems simple, doesn't it? It's because it is. So many people want to complicate things. They don't want to give you the common sense answers. They want to make things harder than they have to be so that you have to continue to live your life in uncertainty, therefore depend upon them. I want you to be independent. I want you to have that dog as part of your family and to be just flourish with them. Enjoy a lifestyle with them. I can't tell you what it's like to have that many dogs as I have and not have to worry about anything. That is normal, that is natural. Because some people are like, you have 4 dogs, that's a lot of dogs. Well, yeah, But when they're under control, see, it's not so much of an issue. And that's the thing that people forget. Yeah, I do have 4 dogs, but guess what? They're under control. They're off leash. So what's my real problem? Nothing really. Yeah, my vet bills go up a little bit, but yeah, that's all right, right? Lastly, how does a dog training system work? Step 1, we have a management system that we install. These are your obedience commands, the tools to communication. Step 2 gets into building patterns, see realistic solutions for you in your life so that you can achieve. These are things that you actually are wanting to do. You're setting them up. So how can you fail at it? Step 3, produce a conditioned response. Go through that pattern enough times that it becomes conditioned, ingrained within the dog so that they understand. So this has just been a little bit of a preview of what you're going to learn. Believe me, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Lord knows I can sit here and talk all day, but I got to cut it off somewhere. So take those principles, apply them, understand them. If you come back to this video, I encourage you, go back through it a couple times. Write notes. Okay, this is literally this is the system. This is what I teach to every single person that comes through my system. I show them how to do these things. And it is just as simple as having a model, having a formula, and understanding what the system of dog training is really about. So I hope it's some good information. I hope you enjoyed it. Once again, this is the intro to this whole canine lifestyle training process. Now, as a side note, if you're wondering, because obviously, once again, this comes with usually one of our introductory packages. Some of the questions that typically come up, what do we do from here? We are interested in it, we're doing some research, what's the next step? Well, here's how our system works. We're going to meet you for an in-home consultation. Here's the reason we do that. You heard all those things that I mentioned before, all the things that I'm discussing. For us to come up with a realistic plan for you, to meet your needs for you and your family, to come up with these realistic patterns for you and your life, we have to meet with you, we have to meet with the dog, we have to see what's going on. All right? And that's really where our programs come from. And notice I said program. We're going to set up a program. What's the difference between a program and a package? Here's what it is. A program is going to get you from A to B. Right? You have your goals. Our starting point is A. Your goals are B. We're going to get your goals. End the story. See, this isn't one of those things where you buy a session, you hope everything works. We are putting our reputation at stake every time we work with somebody. And that's the other big reason we're going to meet with you. We want to see if we're a good fit for each other. We want to make sure that you enjoy your experience with us. Okay? We also want to make sure that we're going to enjoy our experience with you. Right? If it just goes back to what I was explaining before, who is this for, who is this not for? If setting up patterns or wanting a turnkey dog where you never have to do anything and you think that there's never going to be any work involved, well, then we're just not right for you. Because we want to teach you how to be independent with your dog. Right? We're going to teach you how to be a strong, competent parent for your dog handler, or whatever you want to call it. So the consultation is our chance to meet with you, to explain things, and now here's another big thing. We're going to show you our resume. I'm going to show you my dog. Right? If you meet with any one of my trainers, guess what you're going to do? You're going to see their dogs. You're going to see a live presentation of what a finished product looks like. Because to me, results is what should govern who you work with. Right? You want to see everything that's supposed to be happening. You should get full disclosure. If you go to buy a car, you're going to take it for a test drive, are you not? So once we do all that, then we're going to set up a custom-built program for you to help you get the results that you want. And that's where you're going to find the price out. Now, is it affordable? Yes, it's affordable. We've had people on Social Security afford this. We've had people that are on disability afford this. Right? Does that mean that it's going to be PetSmart cheap? No. No, absolutely not. This is going to be a quality investment in your family. All right? And the best part is, it all starts off with the consultation. The consultation's free. All you have to do is call the number. It's provided in the brochure, but here, it's 262-361-3647, or you can email me at Jason Loomis, spelled Loomis, followed by SMS, short for sit means sit. So the whole thing is jasonloomisSMS@gmail.com. You can go to the website, you can fill out the contact forms, you can discuss with us, hey, we really want to do this consultation, we really want to get started. We're going to come to you, we're going to show you the best. I'm already confident of that. We want to make you obviously a member of our family. So that's what we're going to show you, is all that good stuff so that you can kind of learn, hey, here's what we do, here's what we're about, and make sure we're a good fit both ways. Sound good? Excellent. Well, I hope you had fun enjoying this video. Once again, go back, review it, understand it. If you're ready to get started with your dog, if you're ready to get quality training, a quality life, you give us that call and we're going to show you how to do it. And remember, until next time, sit means sit.